are finalizing trade agreements with Asia and Latin America to secure supply chains that bypass U.S. influence. BRICS nations are accelerating de-dollarization.
Hello, and welcome to America at the Crossroad, where religion, faith, and politics collide. I am Pastor Frankie Leggett III, and I'm your host. My topic today is entitled, The End of an Empire. When you look at what's happening in America today, it's clear, especially to many economists, that the American empire is in steep decline. So how can America be in decline when we have a political movement that dons paraphernalia that espouses the notion of making America great again, as if America has ever been great? And in my estimation, unfortunately, America has never been great, nor will ever be great, notwithstanding all of the MAGA hats and shirts and all of that paraphernalia. So I want you to listen to the top economists, and you will get a steady diet of indicators proving that America, in fact, when you look at those economic indicators, not only is America in decline, but we've been in decline for some time. So, what are those indicators? Here are just a few. Number one, America is no longer the world's only superpower. We now have major competition from China, which is a financial juggernaut in the world. That's point number one. That's fact number one. In fact, point number two, the G7, which consists of the countries United States, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK, is being challenged by the BRICS nations. The BRICS. So the question is, who are the BRICS? The BRICS nations consist originally, the original group consists of, and BRICS is an acronym for that original group of nations that came together because they considered themselves emerging economies, and they wanted to have less reliance on the United States and less reliance on the United States dollar, and create alternative currencies and use those currencies to bypass America. Those original countries were Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And then in 2024, Ethiopia, Egypt, Iran, and Indonesia joined, as well as the United Arab Emirates. This is a major deal, ladies and gentlemen, because the BRICS countries overtook the G7 countries' share of the world's total gross domestic product, which is the GDP, in terms of purchasing power parity, and overtook them. And I was unaware of this until I did this research. It overtook them in the year 2018. By 2024, the difference had increased even further. And so by the end of last year, 2024, the BRICS now hold a total of 35% of the world's GDP compared to 30% held by the G7 countries. So they have surpassed the United States and Germany and Italy and those other countries. They have surpassed them. Fact number three. The United States is losing vital trade partners to other nations. We're losing our trade partners because we have a president who wants to alienate the world, and he's turning off the countries that we've always been allies with and trade partners with. Canada, for example, because of the foolish tariffs imposed by Trump, Canada is now considering trade agreements with other nations, in addition to them punching back and putting tariffs on American imports into Canada, which is going to greatly affect the American economy. Japan, which is also a G7 member, is currently engaging in trade talks with other nations as well in the wake of Trump's trade war. BRICS nations are doing business all over the globe with with countries that are turning away from the United States and this foolish trade war that Trump is now imposing on the world. And those BRIC nations are strengthening ties with other emerging nations because they want to reduce their dependency on the US and on the American dollar, and their plan is working. I want to tell you this, and I've been studying this for the last couple of weeks. Africa is one of those emerging markets where those African countries are waking up, and they've decided that the Europeans and those colonists that have been controlling the African nations will control them no longer. And so leaders like President Ibrahim, what is his name? Traore, from boy, what's the name of his country? And I hadn't even thought to mention this. Burkina Faso. They are expelling. They just expelled the French, as are other neighboring West African countries. They're expelling the colonists, and they're taking over their own minerals and their gold, and it is an emerging economy. Burkina Faso is now making its own electric cars, and guess what? They just made deals with Russia and not the United States. So Africa is on the verge of breaking out of colonialism altogether. It is going to be, those African nations, I believe, are headed to Pan-Africanism, one united Africa. It is incredibly exciting. And they're bypassing the United States of America. So more and more nations are joining up with these BRIC nations, and they are consolidating their power. China is building roads and building the infrastructure all throughout Africa, not the United States. So that means African nations are going to China and Russia as opposed to going to the United States for loans and to teach them. Burkina Faso just made a treaty, an agreement with Russia to have Russia come in and train their military, number one, and provide them with weapons, number two. It's bad news for the United States of America. But I don't want you to just take my word. I want you to listen to this clip about the negative impact that Trump's leadership and his administration and this silly trade war is going to be disastrous to the United States. The impact that it's having on other countries. Check out this clip.
Way, the unraveling of American-led globalization. His administration isn't just reviving past trade wars, it's escalating them. One of Trump's first major moves was reinstating and expanding tariffs, targeting China, the European Union, and even traditional allies like Japan and South Korea.
Okay. I don't know if that was the end of the clip. I think I may have cut that short. But anyway, you got the gist. Here is another clip that I want you to pay attention to and check out what's happening as a result of this trade war that the president has implemented. Check out this clip.
Instead of negotiating with Washington, Beijing is strengthening its Belt and Road Initiative, solidifying economic ties with Africa, Latin America, and Europe without U.S. involvement. The EU is shifting away from American leadership. European policymakers, wary of Trump's unpredictability, are finalizing trade agreements with Asia and Latin America to secure supply chains that bypass U.S. influence. BRICS nations are accelerating de-dollarization. Russia, India, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia are moving toward regional currencies, making the dollar less necessary for global transactions. In short, global markets are adapting, and America is losing leverage.
Wow, America's losing leverage. America is losing leverage, which means we're losing business. And American businesses are going to get hit. And the American people are going to get hit. Fact number 4. Private and corporate greed is going to cause the wrath of God to bring ruination to America. I want you to listen to what the Apostle James has to say about greed in these last days. And I would pay careful attention to the wording. It's like James was literally viewing that which was taking place in America when he wrote this. Check out what he says, James chapter 5, verses 1 and following. Look here, you rich people, weep and groan with anguish because of all the terrible troubles ahead of you, the troubles that's coming. Why? Here's what's about to happen. Your wealth is rotting away and your fine clothes are moth-eaten rags. Verse 3. Your gold and silver are corroded. The very wealth you were counting on will eat away your flesh like fire. This corroded treasure that you have hoarded will testify against you on the day of judgment. For listen, verse 4. Hear the cries of the field workers whom you have cheated of their pay. The cries of those who harvest your fields have reached the ears of the Lord of heaven's armies. Oh my gosh, is that not today or what? The migrants who can't go to the fields because they know that ICE workers will be waiting for them to deport them to God knows where. Verse 5. You have spent your years on earth in luxury, satisfying your every desire. You have fattened yourselves for the day of slaughter, which is coming. Verse 6. You have condemned and killed innocent people who do not resist you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to warn you. As far as America is concerned, you need to know and understand this. What goes around comes around. And finally, point number 5. The American empire is crumbling and is about to come to an inglorious end because of the way America has treated God's people. And the way that America has treated my people, people of color. Ladies and gentlemen, America is on a collision course with the judgments of God because of how it has treated God's people in particular and people in general. The American empire is about to come to an end. When God's people begin to cry out to him because of the cruelty of the powers that be, God listens. And not only does God listen, he comes to the rescue of his people and he punishes those that oppress his people. Check out Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 24. It had to do with the cruelty of ancient Babylon and how cruel Babylon was to its victims and to the countries that it conquered. And how God responded to that cruelty. God says through Jeremiah 51:24, I will repay Babylon and the people of Babylonia for all the wrong they have done to my people in Jerusalem, says the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, America will have to pay for its sins, past, present, and future. Empires fall, ladies and gentlemen. Egypt fell, Assyria fell, Babylon fell, Medo-Persia fell, Greece fell, Rome fell. Great Britain fell, and then the United States of America was the next empire that succeeded the British Empire. It is now in the process of falling. My favorite author confirms that God causes the downfall of nations and empires for one reason. Check out what she says. She says, prophecy has traced the rise and fall of the world's great empires, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. With each of these, as with nations of less power, history repeated itself. Each of these nations had its period of test. And each one of these nations failed. When it failed, its glory faded, its power departed, and its place was occupied by another power that succeeded them and took their place. Education page 176, paragraph 7. So she says that each nation was given a test. In other words, each nation was put on probation. What was the test? It was simply this: how that nation treated the people of God was the test. If they failed that test, their probation ended. When their probation ended, its glory faded. When its glory faded, its power departed. And when its power departed, it was replaced by another power that took its place. America is about to pay for its past sins. Why? Because America enslaved my people for 400 years. And then, when America passed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1865, freeing my people after 400 years, they gave them no reparations. They didn't pay them for 400 years of servitude and enslavement. They gave them not a dime. They wouldn't even give them 40 acres and a mule. But they had the nerve to pay the enslavers, I believe the amount was $300 per enslaver, because they lost their workforce. How ignorant. America decimated entire Native American tribes, stripped them of their dignity. And shipped them off to North Dakota, South Dakota, and Oklahoma. And then during World War II, America arrested Japanese Americans, Italian Americans, and put them in internment, a better word is concentration camps, for 4 years until after the war was over. And then, within the last 20 years, America had the nerve, the audacity, and the temerity to pay Japanese Americans, which they deserve, reparations for that 4-year internment. And yet we worked for 400 years for free, and they refuse to give us a dime. America and white Americans, after emancipation, when black people began to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and they created their own communities, prosperous communities. They created Black Wall Streets throughout America. There were a number of them, and not just the one in Tulsa, Oklahoma either. And because they were doing well, and because those black dollars circulated in that black community over and over and over and over and over again before it ever left the black community, white people became incredibly jealous of that prosperity and bombed them and destroyed those Black Wall Streets throughout America because they couldn't stand to witness black prosperity. And they killed hundreds of our people without any of them getting arrested. America dropped a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and killed tens of thousands of Japanese. And for that, America must pay. And America will pay. And God will see to it that it does. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's happening right before our very eyes. And we better get ready for it because the handwriting is already on the wall. I want to end by showing you a clip from very, 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 very famous movie. It's the next to the last scene in the film, The Godfather. Check out this clip.
You have to answer for Santino, Carlo.
You have to answer for Santino, nicknamed Sonny. Carlo, in the film, was Michael's brother-in-law because he was married to Michael's sister, Michael and Sonny's sister. And Carlo cut a deal with Don Barzini to create this fight with his wife and have his wife call Sonny, knowing that Sonny was a hothead, and Sonny jumped in his car and sped off, leaving his protection behind. and came to this causeway where he had to pay a toll to a toll booth, and they were waiting for him, and they shot and killed him. And Carlo thought he had gotten away with it. Then Don Corleone makes Michael the Don after his death. Or even before his death, he started to take over. And Michael gets rid of all 5 heads of the 5 families in New York. And then he comes in and he confronts Carlo and says, you have to pay for Santina. You got to pay for that. America, God is about to say the same thing to you. You must pay for all of your horrific sins that you've committed against people in general and God's people in particular. You're going to pay for those sins. Because this American empire is about to crash and burn. Because what goes around really does come around. And there's nothing you can do about it. So America, you better prepare for the worst because it's coming. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this presentation, then please do me a favor. Hit the like button, hit the notification button, and share this with your family, friends, neighbors, etc. And then hit that notification button so that every time we upload a new broadcast, you can be notified so that you can be apprised of that which is coming. Because it's coming whether you are prepared for it or not. So until next week, be blessed. I'll see you then.